Look at this photo. This is a massive real-life military attack submarine from the 1980s. It's got torpedoes, it hides in the deep ocean, and it's built to blow up giant ships. Now, look at this, a regular ice-cold can of Pepsi. Obviously, these two things have absolutely nothing to do with each other. One is a terrifying war machine, the other is a fizzy drink you get with your pizza on a Friday night. But in 1989, a wild twist of fate brought them together because in that exact year, the bosses at Pepsi sat down at a table with the leaders of the Soviet Union. And when they walked away from that meeting, a giant American soda company officially owned the sixth largest military navy in the entire world. I swear I am not making this up. It sounds like a total joke or a fake internet meme, but it is 100% true. Pepsi briefly commanded a fleet of 17 active attack submarines, a giant cruiser, a destroyer, and a frigate. How on earth did a company that sells fizzy sugar water end up with the military power to invade a small country? Why would a brutal communist superpower hand over its heavy military secrets to a capitalist mega corporation? And what did Pepsi actually plan to do with a bunch of deadly warships? To answer that, we have to go back to a super weird time in history, a time of spies, nuclear tension, and a bizarre, legendary argument that took place inside a fake kitchen in the middle of Russia. And it all started because a Soviet dictator fell in love with a Western drink he was never supposed to taste. Let's rewind the clock to the summer of 1959. Back then, the world was a super scary place. The United States and the Soviet Union were locked in the Cold War. They weren't shooting at each other yet, but they were constantly trying to prove who was the boss. America wanted to show that freedom and buying cool stuff was the best way to live. The Soviets wanted to prove communism was the future. To try and stop a massive war from starting, both countries agreed to throw giant parties to show off their cultures. The Soviets set up a display in New York, and the Americans set up a massive display in a park in Moscow. The Americans didn't bring tanks or missiles to show off. Instead, they brought washing machines, color televisions, shiny brand new cars, and modern blenders. They wanted to show the Russian people how luxurious daily life was in America. On opening day, the American Vice President Richard Nixon was walking the Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev through the exhibits. Suddenly, the two men stopped inside the display of a typical modern American kitchen. Right there, on live TV with rolling news cameras, they got into a heated, finger-pointing debate about which country had better tech. This moment became super famous in history as the kitchen debate. The Soviet leader was visibly angry and sweating like crazy under the hot studio lights. He was defending his country with everything he had, and the vibe was getting super intense. Standing in the crowd was a man named Donald Kendall. He was the head of Pepsi's international team. The night before, Kendall had made a secret promise to his bosses. He told them he would get a cup of Pepsi into the Soviet leader's hand no matter what it took. Seeing the leader sweating and angry, Kendall saw his golden opportunity. He stepped forward, broke through heavy security, and handed the furious dictator a cold glass of Pepsi. The leader took a sip. Then he took another. To the absolute shock of his guards, the dictator's face lit up with a massive smile. He loved it. He immediately turned to the crowd and ordered everyone around him to try this amazing American drink. This guy had just pulled off the greatest marketing stunt in corporate history, but he had also just created a massive, impossible problem that would take 30 years and a fleet of military submarines to solve. Okay, so the leader loved it. But how do you actually sell millions of cans of American soda to a communist country? Here's where the problem starts. Back then, the Soviet currency, the ruble, was basically monopoly money outside of their borders. You could not spend it or trade it anywhere else in the world. So Pepsi couldn't accept it. They couldn't walk into a bank and trade Soviet rubles for American dollars. Pepsi needed to be paid, and the Soviets had zero real money to give them, so they had to go old school, barter trading. If the Soviets couldn't pay in cash, they would have to trade something they did have plenty of, and that was vodka. For years, a legendary deal was struck. The Soviet Union traded thousands of cases of premium Stolichnaya vodka directly to Pepsi in exchange for delicious soda syrup. It was the ultimate trade. Pepsi took the vodka, sold it in America, and made a massive profit. Everyone was happy. Soviet citizens got their favorite soda, and Pepsi was making bank. This vodka for soda trade worked perfectly for years. Pepsi was making billions, and Russians got their favorite drink. But then the unthinkable happened. The Russians drank so much soda that the country literally ran out of vodka to trade. The deal hit a massive brick wall, and the Soviet government was getting desperate. To keep the soda flowing, they offered Pepsi something so insane it is considered the wildest trade in human history. Click on part 2.